The storm arrived before the challenge. Lightning ripped across the black skies of Vera Prime, illuminating a world that looked more like a battlefield than a throne world. Rain hammered shattered stone. Thunder rolled through the canyon like distant artillery fire. And standing at the edge of it all were two figures who should never have met. An alien princess. And a human. Before them floated the monolith. Ancient. Silent. Untouched for thousands of years. Entire civilizations had crossed the galaxy just to witness it. None had ever dared awaken it. Yet tonight, something was different. Princess Liriana, heir to the most powerful empire in known space, stared directly at the humans standing across from her. The crowd watched in breathless silence. This wasn't diplomacy. This wasn't ceremony. This was a challenge. A public challenge. And everyone already knew how it would end. Humans were new to the galactic stage. Young. Reckless. Unrefined. The Empire had spent centuries crushing species far stronger than Earth. So why did the princess choose him? The answer was buried somewhere in the humans' past. A past no one could fully access. A past hidden behind classified records and sealed military archives. Then something strange happened. The humans smiled. Not nervously. Not arrogantly. Like a man who had already seen how this story ended. A ripple of unease moved through the crowd. Even Liriana noticed it. For the first time, uncertainty crossed her face. High above them, the monolith suddenly pulsed with blue light. Once. Twice. Then the ancient structure unleashed a shockwave that shook the entire canyon. Gasps erupted from thousands of spectators. The impossible had just happened. The monolith was responding. Not to the princess. To the human. And as ancient energy crackled across its surface, a question echoed through every mind watching. What did this forgotten relic recognize in humanity that the rest of the galaxy had completely missed? The monolith had responded. Not to the princess. Not to the empire. To a human. And in that single moment, the atmosphere across Vera Prime changed. Thousands of spectators stood frozen beneath the storm as blue energy crawled across the ancient structure's surface. What had been a ceremonial challenge now felt dangerously real. Because everyone in the galaxy knew one thing. The monolith never made mistakes. For over 4,000 years, the Veran Empire had ruled known space through strength. Their fleets darkened skies. Their armies shattered worlds. Entire civilizations measured their history by the day the Empire arrived. Resistance was remembered. Victory was not. At the center of that power stood Princess Liriana. She wasn't merely royalty. She was the future of the Empire. A warrior raised from childhood to lead, conquer, and command. Every test placed before her had ended the same way, with her standing victorious. Which was exactly why this challenge mattered. She had chosen a human. And now the galaxy was watching. Across countless worlds, billions tuned into the live broadcast. Military leaders, politicians, merchants, explorers. Even species beyond imperial territory were paying attention. Because humanity's rise had become impossible to ignore. Just 30 years earlier, humans had barely existed on the galactic stage. Now they were everywhere. Exploring sectors others avoided. Building colonies on worlds labeled uninhabitable. Surviving conditions that made veteran alien crews refuse contracts. The stories sounded exaggerated. At least, that's what most people believed. Until tonight. Then another question began spreading through the crowd. Who exactly was Ethan Cross? The official records described him as an explorer. Nothing more. Yet whispers followed his name. A colony rescued after a reactor collapse. A pirate fleet that mysteriously disappeared after targeting a human convoy. A disaster on a frontier moon where thousands survived against impossible odds. Every report ended the same way. Classified. Restricted. Sealed. The more people searched, the less they found. And that only made the mystery bigger. Then, a low vibration rolled through the canyon. The monolith pulsed again. This time brighter. Stronger. The storm overhead intensified instantly. Lightning forked across the clouds, illuminating symbols that hadn't appeared in centuries. Suddenly, The challenge no longer felt symbolic. Something ancient was waking up. Something the Empire clearly did not understand. For the first time all evening, concern appeared among Imperial officials gathered near the observation platforms. Orders were exchanged. Security teams repositioned. Several high-ranking commanders quietly left their seats. The audience noticed. If the Empire was nervous, everyone else had reason to be afraid. Yet through all of it, Ethan remained calm. Rain streamed from his battered jacket. Thunder shook the canyon. The monolith continued to grow brighter. And still he stood there as if none of it surprised him. Princess Liriana watched him carefully now. The confidence she carried into the challenge hadn't vanished. But doubt had arrived. Just a crack. Small. Dangerous. Because deep inside, a question had begun forming. What if humanity wasn't the weakest species in the galaxy? What if everyone had misunderstood them from the very beginning? And hidden beneath the canyon floor, something ancient was preparing to answer that question. The monolith wasn't just awake. It was watching. Blue energy surged across its surface as ancient symbols spiraled through the storm. Every eye in the canyon remained locked on the impossible sight unfolding before them. Then the trial began. Without warning, a wave of energy exploded outward. The world vanished. At least, that was how it felt. Spectators watched from the outside as Princess Liriana and Ethan Cross stood frozen within the monolith's field. Neither moved. Neither spoke. Yet inside, they were fighting battles no one else could see. The monolith was testing them. Not their strength. Not their intelligence. Something far deeper. Fear. Loss. Failure. The things every living being spent a lifetime trying to escape. At first, Liriana dominated the trial. She relived military campaigns, political betrayals, and impossible decisions. Each challenge only reinforced what the galaxy already knew. She was extraordinary. The crowd erupted in cheers as her energy signature remained stable. But then they looked toward Ethan. And the cheering slowly faded. Because something wasn't happening. The human wasn't resisting. He wasn't struggling. He wasn't trying to overcome the memories being thrown at him. He was simply walking through them. One by one. As if he had done this before. The monolith showed him a failed rescue mission. Friends he couldn't save. A colony reduced to ashes. Years of sacrifice erased in a single day. Many species broke under far less. Yet Ethan kept moving. The storm above the canyon intensified. The monolith responded. For the first time in recorded history, the artifact's energy output began rising beyond normal limits. Officials scrambled to understand why. No answers came. Only more questions. Then everything changed. A massive image appeared above the canyon. A memory. Not from Ethan. From Earth. Billions watched as scenes flashed across the sky. Hurricanes. Earthquakes. Wars. Economic collapse. Pandemics. Generations enduring challenge after challenge. The galaxy stared in stunned silence. Most advanced civilizations had eliminated hardship centuries ago. Humans never had that luxury. Their entire history was survival. Every generation inherited new problems. And every generation found a way forward. Not because they were stronger. Because quitting was never an option. Suddenly the truth became impossible to ignore. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology. It wasn't military power. It wasn't physical strength. It was persistence. An almost irrational refusal to stay down. The realization struck Liriana harder than any trial. She had spent her life mastering victory. Humans had spent theirs mastering recovery. And there was a difference. A very dangerous difference. The monolith recognized it too. Its energy shifted. The ancient symbols transformed. The trial was no longer evaluating contestants. It was searching, looking, waiting for something. Then the impossible happened. The artifact stopped responding to everyone else entirely. Every signal, every scan, every ancient system focused on a single individual. Ethan Cross. The human finally stopped walking. He looked up, and for the first time, something looked back. Deep within the glowing structure, an ancient presence began to awaken. A presence that had been sleeping for thousands of years. And somehow, it knew exactly who humanity was. Something woke up. Not inside the monolith. Beneath it. The moment the ancient presence recognized Ethan Cross, the entire canyon shuddered. Cracks raced through the black stone. Towers in the distant city flickered. Orbiting satellites suddenly dropped offline. Then every alarm on Vera Prime activated at once. The sound echoed across the world. For the first time in centuries, the Veran Empire was caught completely off guard. Above the canyon, the monolith unleashed a pillar of blue light that pierced the clouds and shot into orbit. Silence followed. 1 heartbeat. 2. Then the planet answered. The canyon floor exploded. Millions watching across the galaxy stared in disbelief as colossal structures began rising from the abyss. Ancient metal towers emerged from beneath layers of forgotten rock. Massive mechanical constructs unfolded like giants awakening from a long sleep. These weren't ruins. They were weapons. Ancient weapons. And they had just come online. Panic spread instantly. Imperial commanders barked orders. Warships moved into formation. Defense platforms powered up. Nothing worked. The ancient network seized control of every system within range. Ships went dark. Communications collapsed. Entire fleets became helpless spectators. Meanwhile, the storm above intensified into something almost unnatural. Lightning wrapped around the towering machines. The sky itself seemed alive. Then a transmission echoed across every screen on the planet. One message. One sentence. Guardian Protocol initiated. Nobody knew what it meant. But everyone understood one thing. Something far older than the Empire had returned. And it wasn't asking permission. Across the canyon, Princess Liriana watched military leaders descend into chaos. Generals argued. Officials blamed each other. Years of authority vanished in minutes. Yet amid the confusion, one person remained focused. Ethan. The human moved without hesitation. He wasn't trying to understand who was responsible. He wasn't searching for someone to blame. He was searching for solutions. That difference changed everything. As emergency teams struggled to organize evacuations, Ethan began coordinating rescue routes. Engineers, soldiers, pilots, civilians, species that normally distrusted one another suddenly found themselves following a human's instructions. Not because of rank. Because his decisions worked. One crisis after another was contained. Lives were saved. Order slowly returned. And for the first time, Liriana saw humanity clearly. Their greatest strength wasn't endurance alone. It was action. While others debated danger, humans moved toward it. Then the situation became worse. Much worse. A hidden chamber opened beneath the monolith. Ancient symbols illuminated a path descending deep into the planet. The Guardian network had identified a solution. But it came with a cost. To shut down the planetary defense system, someone had to enter the core and manually stabilize it. The probability of survival was almost zero. The chamber fell silent. No volunteers stepped forward. No commander offered a plan. Everyone understood what the mission meant. It was a one-way journey. Then Ethan started walking. Not dramatically. Not heroically. Simply because somebody had to do it. Princess Liriana moved to stop him. For a moment, their eyes met. The challenge that had begun as a test of superiority no longer mattered. Neither did pride. Neither did politics. Because the human had already made his choice. As Ethan disappeared into the glowing passage, the ancient voice returned one final time. This time, every living soul on Vera Prime heard it. At last. The planet trembled. The machines halted. And the voice finished its sentence. Humanity has arrived. Humanity had arrived. The words echoed across Vera Prime like a prophecy fulfilled. For a moment, everything stood still. The towering machines froze in place. The storm hanging above the canyon stopped growing. Even the endless alarms that had screamed across the planet fell silent. Then Ethan Cross stepped deeper into the ancient passage. Alone. Behind him, Princess Liriana watched the glowing entrance seal shut. The realization hit harder than any battlefield wound she had ever endured. The human wasn't entering the core because he was ordered to. He wasn't seeking glory. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He was doing it because millions of strangers needed someone to act. And that frightened her more than the machines ever could. Because true courage couldn't be commanded. It had to be chosen. Deep beneath the surface, Ethan descended through corridors untouched for thousands of years. Ancient symbols illuminated one after another as he passed. The structure seemed alive. Watching. Measuring. Waiting. Finally, the passage opened into a chamber so vast it felt impossible. At its center floated a sphere of pure white energy. Streams of light flowed through the air like rivers. Entire galaxies appeared suspended within its surface. This wasn't a weapon. It was something far greater. The heart of the Guardian Network. Then the voice returned. Older than any civilization. Calmer than any machine. Designation confirmed. Human candidate accepted. Ethan stared into the light. Accepted for what? For the first time, the ancient intelligence answered directly. Stewardship. Across the chamber, hidden structures awakened. Images appeared around him. Thousands of years of forgotten history. The creators of the network. The civilization that built the monolith. The species the galaxy called the precursors. And suddenly, the truth became clear. They had never disappeared. They had fallen. Not to war. Not to invasion. To comfort. Their technology solved every problem. Their power removed every hardship. Their civilization grew stronger and stronger until challenge itself vanished. Then came the crisis. A disaster beyond anything they had prepared for. And when survival demanded sacrifice, adaptation, and resilience, they failed. The galaxy's greatest civilization collapsed because it had forgotten how to endure. The Guardian Network was their final lesson. A test left behind for whoever came next. Not the strongest species. Not the smartest. The species most capable of continuing after loss. The species willing to carry responsibility when nobody else could. Humanity. Ethan felt the weight of that revelation settle over him. Billions of lives. Entire civilizations. A future stretching far beyond Earth. And now the network was offering him a choice. Accept stewardship. Save the planet. Stabilize the Guardian systems. Or walk away. The cost appeared instantly. His survival probability dropped across the chamber display. 2%. Then lower. Then lower still. The silence that followed felt endless. Above, on the surface, emergency crews worked desperately while the ancient machines remained motionless. Nobody knew what was happening below. Nobody knew whether Ethan was alive. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like years. Then another transmission reached every screen across Vera Prime. This one came directly from the core. A single image. Ethan standing before the sphere. The entire galaxy watched. Military officers. Politicians. Colonists. Children. Even rival governments stopped what they were doing. No speeches followed. No dramatic declaration. Just one simple sentence. Let's make sure tomorrow exists. Then the transmission ended. The sphere erupted with light. Energy surged through the entire planet. The canyon shook. Mountains trembled. Ancient machines across the world activated simultaneously. For one terrifying moment, everyone believed the Guardian Network had chosen destruction. Then something unexpected happened. The machines lowered their weapons. One by one. Like soldiers ending a war. The storm began to break apart. Clouds separated. Sunlight touched the surface of Vera Prime for the first time that day. Cheers erupted across the planet. People embraced. Rescue teams celebrated. Entire cities filled with relief. The world had survived. The Empire had survived. Millions were alive because one human had made a choice. But there was one question nobody could answer. Where was Ethan Cross? The sealed chamber beneath the monolith finally reopened. Emergency teams rushed forward. Princess Liriana led them herself. The descent felt endless. Every step carried equal parts hope and fear. When they reached the core chamber, they found the answer. The Guardian sphere remained active. The network was stable. The ancient systems were functioning normally. But Ethan was gone. No body. No remains. Nothing. Only silence. For weeks, search teams combed through every section of the structure. Nothing. The human who had saved the planet had simply vanished. Stories spread almost immediately. Some believed he had died stabilizing the network. Others claimed the Guardians had taken him somewhere beyond known space. Rumors became legends. Legends became history. And history refused to fade. Months later, Princess Liriana stood before the Galactic Assembly. Representatives from hundreds of worlds filled the chamber. The challenge that had begun as entertainment had changed the course of civilization. She looked across the gathering and spoke words nobody expected to hear. I challenged a human because I believed strength was measured by victory. The chamber remained silent. I was wrong. Every camera focused on her. The strongest among us is not the one who stands above others. Her voice carried across countless worlds. It is the one willing to stand for others. For the first time in imperial history, the assembly rose in unified applause. Not for an emperor. Not for a fleet. For a human. Years passed. Then decades. The story never disappeared. Children learned it in schools. Explorers carried it beyond charted space. Soldiers repeated it before impossible missions. Human and alien alike. Near the canyon where everything began, a monument was eventually built beside the monolith. Simple. Unadorned. A single figure facing the stars. And beneath it, an inscription. Strength wins battles. Endurance changes history. Travelers crossed entire sectors to see it. Many arrived expecting a monument to a hero. Most left understanding something bigger. The legend was never about Ethan Cross alone. It was about humanity. A species that kept moving forward when every reason said stop. A species that refused surrender. A species that transformed hardship into strength. And somewhere beyond the edge of known space, far beyond the maps of the Empire, an ancient signal awakened. A signal older than the Guardians themselves. Its destination was unknown. Its purpose remained hidden. But one message traveled with it across the darkness between galaxies. Humanity has been found. And this time, the universe was preparing for their arrival. The princess had sought a champion. Instead, she awakened a legend. And that legend was only the beginning.